Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you just joined us, this is International Forum. We'll have to make way for you to get to see what is happening in the Senate. It's all about the controversy surrounding the issue of instant transmission of results. Yes, you've heard Senator Godswill Akpabio, Senate President, agreeing to rate. They said, fine, it's okay, but when they have issues, maybe network failure, they can go manually. That's a proviso that is causing one or two encumbrance in the House, and they recommended a 12-member in the House of Representatives to really look into it. As it stands right now, the voice of Nigerians has been heard because we have this constant pressure protest in the National Assembly that must be assented to, and it has been accepted and assented to. But there's a proviso if there's network issue, network failure. What next? Anyway, with me here in the studio, I have two amiable gentlemen, and they are willing to really take a shot at this particular discussion before going to the main discussion of the day, which is the June proposal of the end of the Russia-Ukraine war. That's what Donald Trump is talking about. Zelensky's in on it, but we don't know what Putin is saying right now. My analysts are going to talk more on it. I have yes, Honorable Etiosa Igebo. I like to call him Sunny. Always sunny, sparkling, shiny. Thank you so much for coming, Honorable. I appreciate your comment.
Thank you. Good afternoon, viewers. Right. I'm sure they'll take notice of the shiny shoes.
You got to be kidding me. Seriously, leave the shoes out of this. And of course, I have a legal practitioner. Yeah, Barrister Emmanuel Obapolo. Barrister, thank you so much for coming on today's show.
It's a delight. Good afternoon, Nigerians.
All right. Well, the protest paid off. Let us start off with just a brief talk on the protest around them, the instant transmission of results. I want to start off with you, Honorable One. What do you feel about this? Some are saying kudos to Godswill Akpabio. He has listened to reason. We just saw it there.
Yeah, well, before you say kudos to Godswill Akpabio, the Senate President, well, obviously everybody's happy that he has listened to the larger voice, or if we don't want to be partisan, open, and obviously the presidency, the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has also deemed it fit to allow the concerns of any certain individuals or group within the country when you run a democracy to let them have their own say towards what should be done during elections. Yeah, as much as we all get involved in elections and political activities, I think it is always a good thing to have elections results transmitted real time. But having said that, there are so many other factors that I believe the Constitution do not address that plays a key and predominant role as to how the results are transmitted and what really happens. Because first and foremost, we don't really have the very strong enough infrastructure. You can speak on the issues of the transmission because of network problems. That is what the Constitution has clearly identified. You also need to look at the way people handle such equipments that you use, and then the human factor as well. Though yes, there's always a proviso. If you can't do it transmit automatically, you can equally do a manual process. But then again, I just think that our society has been beaten so badly that the problem that has led to this electioneering distrust amongst party members or players that is involved may have overlooked the aspect of those days when, during the UPN and the SDP days, when they used to do manual elections, and to this day, it's been better than election that the people claim is done of recent times. That creates some level of worry because it means that whatever you create can be circumvented. But at the same time, one thing I also want to take note of is that those people leading protests to correct certain aspects of the Constitution, which they have every right to get involved with, will agree with me that electionary processes is better today than it was when they were in government. However, they worked with the result that they got, they accepted it. So I think with this, that's the beauty of democracy. For the fact that the President and the Senate President allows and listens to the voice of you say, dissenting voice, I think it's good for democracy, and I believe that they should do their best to make sure that the processes work to satisfy everybody so that when the election result comes out, people will generally accept it.
All right, we're going to expatiate more on this on the program Impact on Radio. But what do you feel about this, Barrister Emmanuel Obapolo? It's like the voice of the people finally has prevailed.
Yes, democracy is all about the voice of the people. It's all about game of majority. It's all about what the people want. it goes around the people and nothing but the people. And if you look at what has just transpired just now with the emergency sitting, plenary rather, by the National Assembly, particularly the Senate, it goes to tell you that the Senate President suddenly bowed to pressure. Not that he wanted it, because the man tried to test the waters to see the reaction, to see what the acts of Nigeria, how Nigerians are going to embrace whatever he wanted to do because of his own style of manipulation, style. Because just now, I must be sincere to you, the man enjoys his swim in the ocean of corruption called Nigeria. So, but the people of Nigeria are sticking to the streets, particularly the National Assembly premises, to ensure that, look, just now we cannot but agree to the fact, admit to that fact, and it is also evidential that technology is now part of elections, and for that singular reason, you must give kudos to those who came out, who took their time, who sacrificed everything to ensure that these the provisions of the Electoral Act, particularly Section 60, subsection 5 of that Act, is taken seriously, because the Section 60, subsection 5 of the 2022 Electoral Act as amended specified transfer. And you know, with the Supreme Court judgment during the last presidential election, 2023 presidential election, the court made every person to understand, everyone Nigerian to understand, even while we were busy sleeping, and there was judgment going on, and the judgment eventually came up in the morning, that look, you cannot bet follow the law stricto sensu according to them. And that, for that singular reason, so many persons thought it wise, bookmakers, stakeholders, that look, since we have learned our lessons from what transpired in 2023, I think just now it is mandatory that the transfer of electoral results at real time should be mandatory. And that is what the people have come out to say, that it should be mandatory. Though we saw a lot of excuses, we saw a lot of problems coming up from the Senate, that look, you have some areas in Nigeria, they even went to the extent of naming about 9-11 states that do not have network, and people came up to counter it by saying, look, if the bandits can be in the forest and they have networks, what are you talking about transmission of electoral results?
Not to worry, we're going to expatiate on this on the program Impact on Radio. So you're tuning to 92.3 Independent Radio at about 3:15 for us to really expatiate on this. We want to take a break. When we return, it's all about the proposal to stop the war in the month of June this year. And they're going to have the meeting in America. Miami seems to be the spot where both Russian and Ukrainian delegates will meet with President Donald Trump. Let's see if they can really iron out this particular issue. Do you feel it is going to work? We'll be right back after this break.
Your love, they make my heart to do yori yori. No.
Some days, there comes the Ugemobo Festival, which the Oba celebrates outside the palace gate. A pavilion is built of red cloth where rites are performed to drive away all evil spirits still unsatisfied by the year's sacrifices. The Ugemobo Festival is to commemorate an event in Benin history which dates back to 1504 AD.
Yari, Oba Tope!
The Oba of Benin added a colorful mood to the year's celebration as he walks round the city center amidst cheers.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you just joined us, this is International Forum, reaching you live from Benin City, Edo State, Nigeria. Like I said, I have my two distinguished analysts with me in the studio, Tiosa Igebo, political analyst, political affairs commentator, and of course Barrister Emmanuel Obakolo, political analyst, public affairs commentator. Right now, let's dive into almost like a peace deal right now. They're saying the month of June, that is Trump's proposal that the war between Russia and Ukraine should come to an end. Miami seems to be the place they're looking at to come talk. Zelensky is all in on it. So take it up from there.
Well, I think the International Forum program has been on for a while, before the war in Ukraine started, and I think we were part of pioneer to the idea of the war in Ukraine, and we all had our different opinions and suggestions of what we think would happen. And I said then that I think that the war was baseless. There was no purpose for this war. It's only going to create hardship for the Europeans, and it's obviously going to make Russia lose personnel and everything negative about going into a war. I then strongly stood and condemned the position of Zelensky, who I believe was a president that was inexperienced, because it's not always good when you take a country into war and allow your citizens to die. And if you look at Ukraine, Ukraine has produced a lot of great people, boxers and good sportsmen, and now we are talking peace, but we should have been talking peace before the war started. What have they achieved? I said Russia will have an edge. Today, they are talking about claiming more territories within the Ukrainian states. And some people argued that, okay, Russia was a narcissist or whatever you want to call them. But they felt they had a legitimate right to go in and do what they ordinarily would not do, knowing fully well that if they don't do it, they may be at risk of the expansion of NATO to the east, which was an arrangement and an agreement that was reached that there would be no expansion of NATO to the east. I wish Donald Trump was president during the time of this conflict. I don't believe I would have been sitting here today to tell you that Zelensky was inexperienced. Probably there would have been no war. Thousands of people have died. Sometimes they say 7,000 die in a week. I don't understand where you count 7,000 dying in a week.
Hundreds of thousands have lost their life in this war.
And the war has been going on for 4 years with no direction. It's directionless. And all we can see from the facts before us is that the Russian government or the Russian administration has asked for more land within Ukraine. I pray and I hope that the peace thing really works, because since Trump came, he has been doing his best to see how he can stop the war, and he said it was Biden's war. And for me, I don't just know where to start and where to end, and I cannot wait to see that the war in Ukraine stops, so that the people stop dying in Ukraine and Russia, and the unnecessary and the amount of money that is spent in those wars is used to rebuild Ukraine and allow people to live peacefully. If you look at Chelsea FC was owned by a Russian oligarch.
Yeah.
Because of this Ukraine war, he had a problem. His money in England, they said, well, because he's an affiliate of President Putin. But this same guy invested in Chelsea and created jobs. So war is not a good thing, and I can't wait to see them end this war in Miami,
Right.
America.
All right, thank you so much, Honorable Teosai Giba. Well, Barrister Emmanuel Polo, do you share his views talking about the end to the war? Is it in sight? When you take a look at the month of June, that's a proposal right now.
Yes, because the war in the Russian-Ukrainian war is senseless, needless, yet egocentric. It was a war of ego. And this ego was just between two persons among the millions of persons from these two countries. Give it or take it. The two countries, states in international law, the two states are brothers and sisters. Once upon a time, they were one united nation. But suddenly, somewhere along the line, there was a crack. Yet again, the handlers of the two countries didn't consider the fact that it was a crack that led to the division of this united, once upon a time united
The
nation.
Russian Soviet
Yes.
Union.
Yes. They allowed another crack in the war of the two countries out of ego. And here we are. If I may ask, can they bring back the lives that have been lost? If I may ask, can there be any amount of rebuilding that will put the two countries in a proper shape, particularly Ukraine, who is bleeding just now? If I may ask, can there be still the brotherhood that once existed between these two nations? So these are questions that are begging for answers. So the proposal that the war should end in June, for me, I'm seeing June to be even too far. If it can end now, because whether anybody believes it or not, Ukraine is most hit. And the proposal towards peace, no wonder somebody said, if you love peace, first prepare for war. Maybe they tested that principle. And today, where are they with the principle that was so tested? Russia, Putin, I want to believe, should, as a matter of fact, come down from his high horse and consider his once upon a time brothers and ensure that the proposal for this peace works. All the cards that needed to be placed on the table should be placed on the table. I remember some time ago, I did say on this platform that if the proper stakeholders that really want peace between these two nations are ready to pilot the peace agenda, that the war will come to an end. And I do hope that the actors and the prosecutors of this war must be ready to give and take. It should be a 50-50 chance and not that egocentrism that we saw manifested between the two leaders. Yes, somebody once said on a lighter note that Zelensky was careless. After all, he is a comedian, so he didn't understand the principles of leadership and war. Now, on the other side, Putin, who has been a warlord, perhaps maybe from his mother's womb, and came up, understand the intricacies of war. Yet again, two persons with different opinion met. One has suffered most. The other has also suffered. If you talk of business, economic wise, but I think the proper thing is to see how all stakeholders who are involved in this peace deal must ensure that the mandate of June 2026 materializes, so that peace can return to this once upon a time brothers.
Now, if you take a look at the way Russia is going right now, they are not holding back. bombardment of Ukrainian power supply leading to loss of life, loss of livelihood, you just name it. And from the latest reports, Russia are not showing any sign of even attending that particular peace talk in Miami. Now, what do you have to say about the body language of Vladimir Putin, who is the president of Russia?
The war is already on. Whether or not there's an idea to de-escalate the war or not, they actually have a battle line. So as far as the Russians are concerned, people that have been superpowers who are kind of caught in the web of, when he says the word egocentric to a very large extent, I don't understand why people would exhibit egocentrism when they have the machinery and the tools to feel that way. You know, they said if you want to know how a man really looks like, give him power money. The minute you give him power money, you see a completely different guy. It takes a lot for somebody with high level of understanding beyond his borders to know that everything in life is transient, and whether you are rich or poor, or you become rich or have power, is only temporary. That you must exhibit the highest level of humanity in you and maintain your personality so that at the end of the day, when you come down from that high horse, people will find you worthy to constantly deal with you. But I think with the case of the Russian state, and as well what you just mentioned, with the reaction still on ground, with the level of bombardment that is going on, as far as the Russians are concerned, they've lost people. There may be things they wanted to achieve, you know, that they may not have been able to easily achieve because the Ukrainians learned through war. That is why when Barrister Bakbola said that they are the end taking the hit more, is because they learned during the time of the war. Obviously, before you understand the logic, you would have lost a lot more, and Russia is a more powerful nation. And I believe that if President Putin was not involved, President Trump was not involved in this peace talk and the effort that he has put in, I believe more territories would have been taken today in Ukraine. So I think Ukraine could still count themselves lucky for having a situation whereby the examples of what the true heroes that fell during the battles saw and could never translate back to those who are watching it on TV as a movie, felt and saw, is something that people who were never understanding the idea of leadership or the history behind that sort of region should not come on board next time and want to dare to do what Zelensky did. So I think until the last minute, until the last peace flag is raised, until the last documentation is signed, they should expect more arsenal coming in from Russia as a way of showing frustrations of being restricted, not being able to hit different places and take over and overthrow the regime completely, to make them understand that we are your neighbors, you are your brotherly neighbors, but believe me, when it comes to these things of threatening our existence, we will go all out, and that stuff will kick off kinetically until the last day when the peace flag is raised between both parties. Hopefully, that may happen in America.
So you're saying more bombardment from the Russian side against the Ukrainian side? Is that what you're saying right now?
No, I mean, the Russians are bombing the Ukrainians more because they have more better technology. They have more stronger military. So when it comes to the level and the pace at which the bombs are still falling in Ukraine, you don't expect it to subside, because there are certain areas that the Russians would have been able to, would have loved to achieve, like maybe remove the regime completely, and this time it's more like we went to battle. Yes, there's always a winner and a loser in terms of numbers, but this case is more like no victor, no vanquish. They will show their strength more so that next time such things may not exist again from Ukraine. And I believe that those aspects of the military actions and engagement will continue until if they are able to find peace in June.
All right, thank you so much, Honorable. Now, let me come to you, Barrister Emmanuel Obakpolo. Before the proposed meeting, set for June in Miami, they had a series of meetings, and Russia did not budge when you talk about their own proposal, whether their own condition, because like Russia is going to give it conditions right now. You must let go of this part of Ukraine. You must disband your military and go home. Zelensky said over his dead body, even the Crimea capital Russia, Ukraine will get it back. Now Trump said, look, for there to be peace, Ukraine was ready to cede some land to Russia. And that's what caused the fracas between Zelensky and Donald Trump at the first instance. He said no. Do you see Russia shifting his ground, or Zelensky accepting that particular condition given to them by Russia?
I do not see Russians shifting ground. I do not see. Putin is a man who behaves or who has the attributes of the cast in the film titled The Inglorious Bastards and A Bridge Too Far. In that cast, that film rather, the proponents or the major actors in that cast were determined to ensure that come what may, they succeed in getting the territory that were marked for them to subdue. So on the case of Russia, I see Putin trying to maintain his high horse, wherein he would want to say that the territories that have been so captured by Russia should remain a Russian territory. And I think that is the bane or the springboard for the continuance of the prosecution of this war. So if Zelensky on the other side wants a situation where whether or not there has been a capture, there has been an overthrow, there has been a subdue of a Ukrainian territory by Russia in course of the prosecution of this war by the same Russia, that those territories are Ukrainian territory, then in that stead, what do we do? And if you look at the first meeting between Zelensky and the man called President Donald Trump of the United States of America, that was what was the subject of discussion, wherein Zelensky wanted a situation where Trump would give him a support to ensure that those territories that were captured by Russia are given back to Ukraine or remain.
Biden promised.
Yes. So, but you know, on the other side, the man Donald Trump himself is erratic in some aspect of his style of doing things. So, if Donald Trump would make an appeal to Putin to say, okay, out of the territories you have captured, why not allow 30 or 60 to go to Ukraine? You maintain this. I think I see a situation where it will be easier to have a compromise to the conclusion of this war. But I do not think that Putin would want to concede to that. And that is why I think June may not be the mandate.
All right, hold on now. Let's get to hear from Honorable Ehiye Garema joining us virtually. Honorable, it's a pleasure to have you join us this afternoon on International Forum. Now, talking about June, do you see it happening? Because talking about end of the war, come month of June, a president meeting in Miami. What do you have to say about this, Honorable Ehiye Garema?
Thank you very much for having me. I don't see the possibility without sounding negative, but I don't see the possibility of. Don't forget, there has been many or several, peace deals that were arranged. The last one was, starting from like February of last year, when President Trump had met with President Clinton in Alaska, and nothing happened afterwards. And then around Thanksgiving in November, there was another one, and the target there was there should be a peace deal by Christmas. And of course, that did not happen. Then this is there. Because basically, we look at the fundamentals, what is on the table, what is being discussed, and what is the likelihood of common grounds being reached. You're going to look at, for instance, Ukraine fundamentally wants security guarantees from their Europe allies and the United States, which would mean that they would be entitled to Article 5, which means an attack, the same one that all NATO members are entitled to, which takes us back to what was the first reason for this conflict. It was Russia's stiff opposition to Ukraine wanting to join NATO. That was what led us here. So what is the most critical ingredient in Ukraine wanting to join NATO is the Article 5, the activation of the Article 5. So when Ukraine says we want security guarantees, it's saying through the back door, I am not a member of NATO, but I want to enjoy the benefit of being a member of NATO. Russia is never going to agree to that. Then you take us back to 2022. There was a peace meeting in Istanbul in Turkey that Turkey brokered. And in that peace meeting, one of the fundamentals that was discussed was the size of the Ukraine military post peace talk. And the Europe, Ukraine agreed that the Ukraine military should be a minimum of between 600 to 800,000 at a time. But Russia only said they are agreeing to Ukraine having 85,000 as their military strength. So you see, there's a whole gulf between the two numbers. So this has also not been agreed. So Ukraine is feeling like if we have 85,000 soldiers, these people will run us over anytime they wish in the future. While NATO is saying, no, they should have a formidable military. They should have between 600 to 8,000 men at any point in time to serve as a further security guarantees. Then my co-discussants have talked a lot about territorial gains. It's what happens in modern and even old warfare. When you go to war, you win territories and you keep those territories. It's happened here in the United States, in the state of Texas, Florida, California, all used to belong to Mexico. If you go to Israel, how they took up the Golan Heights and all of those places, people win territories when they go to war. It's a prize that they win. Russia feels like they have to keep the Donbass and the Oblast and all of those. But there is pressure on both President Zelensky and even Putin back home. If Putin backs down a little bit, it's going to have grave political implications for him back home because Russia has lost a lot. They've lost a lot in terms of their military hardware. They've lost a lot in terms of manpower, and same goes for Zelensky. You don't want to leave a legacy of being a president that led your country to war only to cede territories. So on the both sides, they're under pressure from their home front. So I don't know what is going to give between now and June in terms of this strict stance that they have all stood. This one is on this side and insisting. Zelensky cannot say, oh, I'm going to have 85,000 military. I mean, that means you'll be a walkover for Russia to come for you tomorrow. So, and America is not giving the security guarantees, but Europe is insisting security guarantees must come with a deal. So, at the end of the day, I think June looks not like a time where peace will be possible. There will be peace at any time.
Thank you so much. And then Garima, he said June might not likely be possible because we are pressed for time. We're going to have a part 2 of this discussion. What do you think Ukraine will opt for? Because Russia, according to Barrister Emmanuel Obapolo, will not shift ground.
Yeah, I think Putin made it very clear and simple that any territory that is occupied through the Russian blood will never be given back. So if the war that has been happening before now, there was some sort of arrangement, I don't think the expansion would have continued. However, my brother Ihariwa is a human being. He has his own opinion, and I'm thinking with my own views. I believe that they are tired of the war. I believe Ukraine themselves really wants the war to stop, and I know that Zelensky will have no option but to give up land. And if he knows that if he continues in this path, and Trump gets a bit upset and pull out of the deal, he knows he'll have a lot more trouble to deal with.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. I know you have so much to say, but we are pressed for time. Honorable, not to worry. I'm still going to reach out to all of you next week, Tuesday, to really finalize this discussion. We are just starting it because it's just getting more and more interesting. Is June 6th feasible when you talk about the peace deal between Russia and Ukraine being brokered by Donald Trump? See you next week, Tuesday, God willing. Bye for now.